This is Blue Sky. This is my profile. I've been posting a lot of NBA content on here recently. So if you guys, I don't know if you're on Blue Sky or if you're going to be moving there soon or you thought about it, but if you look up MadDogHux on there, you can find me. I've been posting like clips of like the Suns games as I watch them on playback TV. So you could watch us live with me on playback, or I'll just get you live clips, you know, from games as they happen. Like that. Shazam, he hits, right? Okay, and then like other stuff, so just tons of NBA and gaming content, everything related to this channel. As you can see, I posted today, 3 hours ago, I was working on something, and that's what we're going to be doing today is the tier list for the stream. And then like there was a big trade in the WNBA recently. I swear, yeah, right here. You have Jewel Lloyd going to the Aces. You have Kelsey Plum going to Sparks. Stormer involved as well. Arguably the biggest trade in WNBA history just happened. As far as if you measure it by total All-Star selections amongst players, that's 9. And I went ahead and pulled my own data. You can see here I did my own research. I did all these posts about players when they're traded, when they were traded, and how many. How do I say it? When they were traded, how many All-Star appearances they had at the time of the trade, stuff like that. Really in-depth thread if you want to go ahead and read through all of that. You don't have to, though, because I also summarized the data here. So, like, Jewel Lloyd and Kelsey Plum would tie for 9th all-time on the NBA's, like, list. Just by total All-Star game selections. You can see here the players involved and the how much, like, it adds up to. 20 being the highest with Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce. That'd be the Celtics trade to the Nets. This is by season, so you can see kind of just overall how high the numbers go. Also, not every year is represented, obviously. And then I think that the only adjustment is like, because one guy was missing, if you look here on the Wilt Chamberlain one, that's the only thing. I had to include Lee Schaefer, right? Yeah, Schaefer on there. But then, just looking at the ladies' information, this gives you a very clear indication as like 6 that Jewel Lloyd has. She by herself in this trade would have tied the 2 previous largest trades of all time. But with Kelsey Plum on there, it puts it over the top, makes it 9, which is 33% more All-Star selections than any other previous trade it ever had. You had a couple here where like, this is literally almost an even trade. Same kind of deal going on here. Just like a bunch of stuff I'd noted. These were some of the biggest trades in the NBA. You can see Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce to the Nets, Shaq and Marion, Heat, Suns swap. And this is in order of what my research. There may be others. One thing I did note, and I think I posted about it on here, something while doing the research is like how many players would go on to have more All-Star games after the trade that maybe would skew your view or think one team like got a better deal than the other. That said, like I said, tons of NBA content. You guys know me. I'm a gamer first, probably. Well, no, I'd probably actually say I'm a hooper first, gamer second. But I never made it as a hooper. A little on the shorter side. Didn't quite have the athleticism. Anywho, got love for the game is the point. That said, we are making some Hoopers content today. This is a Hoopers tier list that I'm making. Here's the criteria for being a Hooper. They have to be skilled enough to have some flash in their game. They gotta be able to do some moves that maybe other guys can't do. You know, don't just come with fundamentals in basketball. So a little bit of flashiness, some showing off of the skills. I'm not saying not everybody in here's a hooper, in my opinion, but some people might think they are. So I went through, I did some research on who's considered the best hoopers of all time, getting you a bucket, yada yada. Common names thrown out there. But that's it. It's about getting you a bucket and having some flash to your game. That said, just to kind of like set the scales, Shaq, I'm putting down here only because his game had some flash to it when he was young, and he went so far away from using his skill sets to more just dominate with brute force and weight and will of the size of him as a being. And that's great and all, and he is a dominant force. I'm not saying Shaq's not a scorer. He is an absolute scorer. He could get you some buckets. He got 40 a few times in the playoffs. I don't think he ever got 50. But he can get you some buckets. And he would dominate the process, draw lots of fouls, get the rebounds, get some blocks here and there. But my point is, I don't see him as a hooper. Another one I would say that's the same thing, exact same kind of argument, but I would never say he's a bad player. He could get you buckets occasionally, but that wasn't like his thing. He wasn't known for that. That's the big fundamental. The big fundamental absolutely has skills as a ball player. Do not get me wrong. I am not hating. I had to watch the Suns fall to Tim Duncan so many times in the playoffs and then go on to win championships on top of that. And all I have to say is I don't see him as a hooper. If this was just the greatest power forwards of all time, he'd probably be up here. You know what I mean? But we're not doing that. Obviously, Shaq would still stay down here because he's a center. He's not really a power forward. He might not stay down here. He might go up to like here because I think he could play power forward, but would it be the best? In a modern context, probably not. In a context back then, also probably not. But that's a story for another day. Anywho, so here we go. Let's get into this list a little bit. I'm going to throw Jordan and Kobe at the top of my list right away. The reason I'm doing that is I think they're like S tier hoopers. The reason they inspired so many that followed after them. And it's because they had some flash to the game. They absolutely could get you the buckets. The turnaround fadeaways, definitely a big part of that. I'm just debating in my head if they're going to be the only ones there. Because I see AI here, and I'm like, does he go here or does he go here? Thinking for a moment before I make any decisions. Tell you what, let's get some more in here first. Kyrie's another one that comes to mind. Kyrie's down here. Just, these guys might be S tier, and I'm just trying to think of like who would be in that tier with them. I don't know. I'll move them here for now. I may move them back down. These might be the only 4 that get in here. That said, the rest of this is going to be like, how many buckets did they get? Like, how good were they? Now, Big O, his skills, he had a lot of skills. He had a little flash to his game. He could do some around the backs. He had the moves back in the day. Also a bigger guard, so he was a triple-double machine. Get a lot of rebounds, get a lot of assists. He had a little jumper on him. They didn't have the three-point line in his day, but he had some range. It's hard to know how far those shots were. If you've ever seen old clips. Sorry, I'm thinking you're in chat. I just realized my chat closed. Pull that back up. Where was I? Oh, Oscar Robertson, that's right. Let's put him in the middle for now. I'll probably judge some based on like above or below Oscar. It's like old school, like so much skill. So good. Larry Bird. I mean, he had the whole package. He could get you a bucket, and he would tell you how I was going to do it. He's got to be A. He had so much swag. I'm debating if I move him down or not. Or I mean, yeah, he can say that. Okay, Chris Paul. I would put him here. The thing about Chris Paul, and this is going to be true of a few of the point guards, they're pass first. So if I would put him here normally, I'd put him here because he's pass first. Because not that he couldn't get you a bucket, it's just odds are he's not like going to be the go-to guy on the team. He could be. He was like in his early Hornets days. I watched him go back and forth with like Steve Nash and several other players. In his I used to love watching the Hornets with Young and on that team. They were like one of my favorite like other teams to watch. They're not my favorite team, but like they were like they played a style in a way that I liked, mostly because of Chris Paul. And yeah, I think he's a B tier. Now, Steph Curry, I think, goes in A. And the only reason is like, oh, I don't know, man. The reason AI and I feel like Kyrie got a bump is because of their scoring prowess. But I can't hold that against Curry. He has, I mean, Bird has scoring prowess too. But Curry's handles, I'd say, aren't up to these two. The handles are what get AI and Kyrie up above. You know what? Maybe Kyrie comes back down. Maybe it's just AI up there. Because my thing with Kyrie, it's not that he's not a scorer or whatever. It's just like, I put it. He's just never been as prolific a scorer as AI was, especially when you consider AI was in a slower era with lower scoring and things like that. Just the amount of buckets he was getting, it was very impressive. I mean, I bet you if you adjusted it for the modern day pace, his numbers would look insane. All right, anyway, let's move on from that. So Dame, ooh, Dame could get a bucket. He has decent handles. I'm debating on like here, but I'm thinking because oh, this is tough. I think I'm gonna put Dame in D tier. Only because it feels like he has. I'm not saying he's a bad player, but I think he has some flaws in his game. Little bits, I think, to do with his stature. He's not able to. I'm not saying he can't dunk, but he's not as physically imposing. He's not a big guard. Not that Chris Paul's a big guard. Chris Paul has handles and pass fakes and other moves in his bag that I think get him further up the list than Dame. But Dame can absolutely shoot the lights out if needed. And I think part of it, I don't know. Right now, I'm just trying to figure out how to feel the middle ground. These guys all could be C tier. For all I know. I might move people around. Let's wait until we get further in to make some of those decisions. Now, Dirk is a Hall of Fame legend. He's a big, which means, like, you know, the handles, that wasn't what he was known for. But, like, I mean, again, he's like a Hall of Famer and a championship winner over, like, one of the most dominant teams ever in the Miami Heat. You know, I think because of that championship, yeah, he goes in C tier. Otherwise, I'd probably put him in D tier. Yeah, I think he goes C tier. We're going C tier with Dirk. C for championship. Give him a little boost. Now, Dr. J definitely has got some swag. Got some skill. And could he dunk in his day? Have you ever seen some old Dr. J highlights? They are great. He was a scorer. Hello? Hello? I'm going to bump him up because of his influence. Because of the swag, the carrying, the cradle of the ball for the dunk, the out of bounds reverse layup with the flip off the glass from like behind the basket. Like a lot of stuff he did was very inspirational to other players. Direct lineage to like Jordan, Kobe, which then goes to like LeBron and the, you know, all the ripple effect. I'm gonna give him a bump up to B instead of putting him in C tier. Just because of that. KD without a second thought, A tier. For sure A tier. For sure A tier. Might move Bird like there. Yeah. Okay, Dwayne Wade, absolute could get you a bucket. Wasn't known for his outside shooting. Fast as hell. That's why they call him Flash. He did get a championship. Some big three kind of shenanigans. I personally think Dwayne Wade had a higher peak. Maybe not as long. And maybe he doesn't have the MVPs with it, but he's got the championships. Him and Dirk, they're going to be right next to each other for now. Putting Dirk over him because Dirk beat him in a very lopsided series where the Heat should have won. So in my eyes, that makes Dirk. I'm going to give him that slight edge. Just the history helps influence how I see their skills. Absolutely phenomenal. And by the way, we're at a point where, like, these are hoopers. If you're a D or above, you're like a phenomenal player. You know what I mean? I don't want to make it sound like F is basically just saying you're not really like a hooper in my eyes. And then it's just ranking you tier style amongst each other. I don't want to see it as pass fail kind of thing. I want to just see it as like S, A, B, C, D. Like, these are kind of where they fall in. Anyway, so just think of it like that. I know that's how grading normally goes. And if that's the case, I probably have a lot less Ds. A lot of people probably get bumped up, to be fair. I don't want to do that. I want this to hopefully have a decent spread where like the middle's maybe the biggest and then like it gets smaller on the edges. But we will definitely see how that goes. Now, Kevin Garnett. Oof. Champion as well. Can't knock it. But if we're going to talk about Kevin Garnett's game, he's more of a midi guy. Probably could do the corner threes. Didn't really make it to the modern era, so it's really hard to say, like, with confidence, you know, where he fits, what all time, as far as like being a perimeter guy. But like I said, he did have a jumper. I think he could do it. I think he could be a guy that could have transitioned the modern era stretch to floor. He did make it pretty close to the modern era. And defensively, I mean, there's no speaking, like, you can't speak anything poorly about this guy. I mean, but offensively, he didn't have the biggest bag. He had a bag. It just wasn't the biggest. And a lot of that has to do with his size, his position, what he was asked to do, right? So I don't hold that against him at all, but he was more skilled than most guys his size and in his position and of his era. Ooh, Iceman, George Gervin here. I'll put George Gervin here with Dame. Let's have him keep Dame some company here. That feels good for now. I don't know if he should be above or below. I don't know if we really care about the above or below thing. I feel like Gervin had more swag than Dame. Sorry, Dame. I love you, but Iceman had some swag. And he has the name Iceman. I mean, come on. All right, so now we got James Harden, who's definitely a bucket getter. And I'm thinking maybe here. Maybe here. I think here. He's going to... it's again, this is a tough one. I'm putting him at the top of B because he's like on the edge of A-B. He's a bucket getter. He's got some moves. He really popularized that step back on the gather. But he did get MVP. His peak wasn't super long. I don't know. I just think if Bird is going to be the bottom of the A's right now, I don't know why. I just feel like Bird had a little more swagger than James Harden. And they could both get you buckets. So you're basically splitting hairs at that point. Like, you got a B plus to like an A minus. I wouldn't even say Bird's an A minus. I'd say he's an A. Maybe there's a little gap there. Now, Jokic is a big. And look, it might look like I'm hating on bigs. You see how low everybody is on this list? As far as the bigs, nobody's made it above C yet. Well, guess what? Jokic is going up. For sure to B, at least. I'm thinking he goes here. The years he's been in the MVP conversation now, and the way he dominates, how like effective he is at it, and like the consistency, plus he got a championship out of it. He's got to go above Harden. Yeah, he's got such a weird skill set. Like, he's got that one-legged shuffle shot. They call it the Sombor shuffle. He's got his version of the Dirk fade. He's got his hook shot. He's got his banker. He's got his over the head three. Like, he's got a lot of skill. And if you've seen him pass the ball, you know he's got some flash to his game. Now, Kareem could get you buckets for days. More than almost anybody will be on this list. Second to only one. Used to be second to none. And the thing is, he had skill, he had touch. Didn't have a lot of flash this game. Did have some skills, though. I kind of want to put him maybe at the bottom of D. because he did have more finesse and stuff to his game than like a Shaq did. Yeah, I think I'll put him at D. So anybody that watches this back later and is like, man, you just be hating on the bigs or whatever. I don't know. Or you're hating on Dame because why do you got Dame down in the D's? Like maybe you think Dame deserves to be up a B tier or C tier at least. Fine, you can do your own list, but I'm just gonna say if Kareem's down here, don't feel bad that the other guys are down here either. Again, Iceman Gervin, not a scrub. Love the dude. The finger roll? Are you kidding me? Yeah, I think that feels good. Kawhi. Okay, here's the thing. I had to go back and watch Kawhi clips. Kawhi being the next guy. Originally, I had him. I think I did a practice run of this tier list because I made this tier list. And I had him at D, and then I moved him up to C, and then back to D. And I'm feeling that way right now. Here's my thing. He does have skills, so I bumped him up to C before, and I don't know how high I should put him up here. Maybe above, maybe right about there for now. The thing is, he's not primarily known as a scorer. Yes, he can be, and he's gotten buckets, and he's had phenomenal game winners and stuff like that, and tough shots over double teams. He's had that. And I don't want the injuries and his lack of availability. Like if this was greatest players of all time list, his injuries, his lack of availability, stuff like that, the lack of team success other than like the championships with the Spurs and Raptors, like when he's been the guy in the focal point, the Raptors was his peak. He hasn't had any other year where it was like that. The Spurs, I would argue, he maybe was a little better while he was there. He had he was peaking higher. Maybe you didn't see it as much. But that's because he had other talented players on his team who also were champions and things like that. And I think that kind of hid, and the Spurs system too, kind of hid some of his flashiness into his game. That said, I don't think he's had enough flash over time to move him higher on this list. You know what I mean? He hasn't had, his flashiness is more just about like tough ethical buckets, but very rarely is it flashy. It sometimes it is. Like I said, sometimes it's over the double team. It's that corner three over Joel Embiid to go to the finals. It's all these things, these moments. But I just wish there was more of them. And maybe that's how the injuries kind of creep in, is they didn't allow him to have as many throughout his career. And I'm not saying he doesn't have a bag. He has a bag. He for sure has a bag. I don't feel I can put him higher on the list. That's all. And that's maybe an argument with Dame too. Like, he has absolute highlights, but the highlights that showcase the swagger, his skill set, the killer instinct, the hooper's mentality, those tough buckets, they're fewer than there should be, probably. He's had absolute monster shots, like the game winner over the Clippers and things like that. But maybe it's just because Portland didn't have a lot of deep playoff runs. There could be a number of things there. That's probably why like a Dame is down here instead of in the C tier. Anyway, let's move on to LeBron. LeBron, I know some people are going to be like, yo, that's S tier. Here's my deal. Same argument about... I would probably have him in A tier first off. Because I see him more comparable to like a Bird, skill-wise and all that. But to finish this thought, because of a good majority of his gameplay, especially when he was younger, was more about speed and power, the brute force, less finesse, kind of like O'Neal. I'm going to take him down at least one row. I'm just trying to think of where I think I had him in C in the practice tier, but if I have him in C skill-wise, he's basically got to go at the top. And I'm thinking instead, he goes to B. And I'm trying to think of where I would have him all-time on the B list. I think he could do all the Dr. J dunks and stuff. And all that kind of stuff. I think he's also a better scorer than Dr. J. And I don't think Dr. J was particularly clutch. I mean, he had Barkley, Bobby Jones, and he had phenomenal teams that, you know, those Sixers are really good. there's other guys he can go to for a buck. I'm not saying he wasn't the go-to guy at times, but there were other options, is my point. Moses Malone, I don't know if I already said him. Things like that. It was, yeah, Moses Malone, that's what I was thinking of. Anyway, this is how it's going to go for now. Like I said, I could see LeBron anywhere between there and here. I'm going to put him here for now, just because, like I said, I don't think he's a hooper's hooper. If we're being honest, he's just like the same argument against Tim Duncan about being fundamental, well-rounded, all that. He's just that guy, and he's been doing it so long, like the buckets accumulated. But he didn't have enough seasons of scoring 30-plus points to move him up maybe to where James Harden is. He hasn't invented basketball moves like the gather step back, because we had step backs before James Harden did the gather step back. Because you got to remember, the gather dribble is a newer thing that the NBA started allowing, which allowed him to invent the gather step back. So there was an ability to create it until like the rule changes kind of happened in the NBA. But he's getting moved. James Harden's up there, and if you know prime James Harden, you know he was a bucket. He was definitely averaging over 30. Now Luka. Oh my God, this guy has so much in his bag already, like a crazy amount. I think right about there. He has a lot of James Harden in his game, like a lot. The step backs. He's super skilled. He's so good. He's so young too. Yeah, I think that feels about right. That feels about right. And I'm gonna be honest. I see some Suns players coming up down here. I'm gonna be biased as hell when I get to them, and some former Suns too. Don't worry. I'll tell you. I'll tell you the rationale behind everything. If you disagree, you guys put it down in the comments. If you guys, hoopers were missing from this list, you want me to redo it? Again, put it all in the comments. All right, here we go. Next one, Magic Johnson. Now, Magic Johnson absolutely was skilled AF, but he wasn't necessarily a bucket. He could score, and he did score. He did have good scoring games. Hell, he had games he played at center. He played at point guard. Forward. I'm going to put him here, I think, just because he would be here, but he was more of a pass-first point guard. Just like I said, I had to knock Chris Paul down. I'm kind of glad I did, because having him at A tier now would feel weird. But Chris Paul's so skilled. I don't think I can knock him lower than that. Chris Paul was such a factor in, like, just making bad teams good. Nobody remembers this, but OKC was supposed to have a tank year that they were going through, and instead they made the playoffs with Shea after the Paul George trade and the Russell Westbrook trade. Was it Carmelo Anthony trade or Carmelo Anthony signed? Carmelo Anthony left, doesn't matter. But like they were supposed to be left like done for. Like they were going into rebuild mode. And crazy enough, he was so good, the Suns trade for him because they need a guy like that. They need a point guard. And then he revitalized his career a little bit, made a few more All-Star games. Yeah, I think he still goes there. The longevity, like him turning teams around, him turning the Hornets around. I mean, turning the Clippers around. Dude, the things he did were like miracles. He'd take like a 20-win team and instantly make him a 60-win team. Maybe a 50-win team. He was good. He was good is my point. Now, Carmelo Anthony. I hope in dreams is that someday I could have NBA and basketball discussions with Click Productions, who's a huge Melo and Nugget fan, or Knicks fan. Sorry, Melo was a Nugget. That's the slip there. Anyway, he's a huge Knicks fan, Melo fan, and Melo could get you a bucket in a phone booth. This dude's skills were so unique and like unmatched for such a time. Like he didn't have like the Dream Shake or anything. He had like Dream Shake type moves, but his work with the pivot foot and body control and getting separation and just his bully ball kind of tactics. He could do so much without putting the ball on the floor. You know what's crazy? I actually see him as more skilled than LeBron. And I always have. Even when they were competing in high school. That Syracuse run was crazy. They have different skill sets. And because this is a Hoopers list, and it's not just pure skills, because LeBron's passing and other stuff would surpass Carmelo a lot. This will probably be the only time I have Melo over Bron. So that's what we're going to do. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. And then, speaking of Moses Malone, here we go. We got Moses. Now, Moses Malone, an undersized big, pretty skilled. But some of the things I would say about him is the era and what was asked of him probably going to hold him back about how high he goes up on this list. It's not that he couldn't dribble or nothing. He wasn't a plumber. And he could get you buckets. But that wasn't his primary reason for it. I mean, he was a rebounder. He was so much more than that. I'm going to put him here below Kareem for now. Kareem's down here. It's not disrespectful. Kareem feels like he should be up here because he's like, it should be like LeBron, Kareem, the all-time points scored. I'm trying to not let points scored influence where they show up on the list. About how you get buckets. Mostly about how you get buckets. Yeah, it's about how you go about doing it. Oh my God, MV Steve. Woo. Okay. I want to put him here because I think Steve Nash is basically, his only flaw was he didn't shoot more, in my opinion. As for point guards, so like I said, I want to put him here, but what I just said out loud, I got to move him down, like I said earlier. That said, he also wasn't a prolific scorer. He got games over 30, but he wasn't shooting like that. Definitely passed first, so I got to take him down another tier. Breaking my heart to say that out loud. God, having Melo here feels a little weird above. Well, no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. He could definitely score more than those guys. That said, I'm gotta take like Nash down to here, maybe. Maybe right here. I'm giving Nash the benefit of the doubt because he did have more outside range and touch on his shots. He had the floaters, he had the one-legged shots, he had the leaners, the fadeaways. He had a lot in his bag, and he was very good. 50, 40, 90, basically, whenever you needed it. So I'm going to put him there. It is what it is. Really good. Akeem the Dream Olajuwon with the dream shake, with the footwork, with the right-left fake, over the shoulder, over the other shoulder, going left, going right. The hooks, the up and unders, like he's like Melo. If Melo was a center and not invented, but was the first to perfect the footwork. And that said, I gotta put him like up here. He's had such a huge influence on so many centers, from Victor Wembanyama, who's in the league now. You know what's crazy? He's still used as a coach for bigs all the time. They learn footwork and all that stuff. He's got to be here. He's got to be at least B. I don't think I can put him A, because he wasn't that kind of bucket getter, but I think he's got to go here. And his skill set and his defense was... Oh, you know what, though? Now I'm saying that out loud. I think innovation gets him far, but his lack of bucket getting, I'm going to move him down to like here. It's not a big deal. It's still in the same tier. I just slid him over. If you ever get a chance in a 2K sim to draft center in the 80s or to trade for one in the 90s, especially the early 90s, because you can't do it once the mid 90s come around, get Akeem. He's going to be the best offensive and defensive, both ends of the floor. That's what I'm saying. His skills weren't only on the offensive end. He had him on the defensive end, and even had some like no-look passes and stuff to his game. Oh my God. The passing of Steve Nash... See, my bias is creeping in again. I want to move him up. I want to creep him up because, guys, if you have seen some of the passes that would lead to buckets, I want to move him up. But that doesn't count, so he's going to stay down a bit. Okay, Paul George. Paul George has influenced a generation of hoopers, for sure. And Paul George is a hooper. But Paul George, to me, when people say Paul George is their favorite basketball player, I immediately think to myself, there's a reason. Because at no point ever was Paul George ever really like the nicest or best at basketball or a skill or something. It's kind of like above average in everything. To like excellent in some things. And I don't hate Paul George. I love him. Oh, God. Him in his Pacers days. Woo. Him on the Thunder. It's nice. Got him and Melo with Russ. That was a fun time, man. That was a fun Thunder team. That said, I think Paul George, as smooth as he is, because that's what he is. He's smooth. He's not flashy. And he can get you buckets. So I think buckets moves him up a tier. But not being flashy takes him down, so he stays the same. Now, does he go C? He go D. I'm thinking he goes C. He kind of goes at the bottom. Pistol Pete Maravich. Holy shit. Talk about an innovator, right? Oh, I don't even know where to put him. He could score. Sure as hell dribble, and he sure as hell could pass. Just his name is Pistol Pete because dude's, you know, he's got so much flash. What is it called? Call him flash powder or whatever. His gunpowder. He's not the most prolific scorer. Say that. One hell of a scorer, though. I'm thinking, and an influence too. Like his influence, like Oscar, huge. Like Akeem, huge. Like Bird, huge. I'm thinking there feels good. He didn't win any championship. I don't think he had any scoring titles, but that feels good. Ooh, John Stockton's next. Now, here's my thing with John Stockton. Super skilled guy. Ass first point guard, so I can't put him up at like 6 or I'm sorry, B. He wasn't score first. He wasn't even that big of a scorer. So I'm thinking because he's got to go in D. He did have some flashiness to his game, but he was really fundamental. What do we think? Above or below Dame? I want to say Dame might have a little more swagger to his game, but maybe not. I'm going to put some respect on John Stockton for being like, you know, an originator and putting him up here. But he's definitely a pass first point guard. Oh my God, we're to T-Mac. T-Mac. Talk about skills, man. Dude was getting buckets since day one. Didn't even know you. Oh, you know who's not on this list? And is supposed to be on this list? Hold on. Will that reset it? It doesn't. Wait, will it save? I gotta add somebody. Somebody's not on here. All my fault. I thought of him. I definitely thought of him. What just happened? Please tell me it saved all my progress. It did. Okay. He didn't even know he was cousins with T-Mac. I'm sorry, with Vince Carter at the time. But T-Mac, I'm thinking bro was an absolute bucket and had tons of skills. Didn't have the championship success. Oh my God, can I move? Fine, I'll just move you down. I'm thinking he goes about here, maybe? You know what? He had flash to his game. I'm thinking I move him up to B with Dr. J. Matter of fact, they were both better scorers than Nash. You guys can both go above them. Okay. But Nash, in my opinion, flashier than both. Oh my God, Jerry West. Jerry West, if you don't know, absolute legend. Skilled as hell. Old school baller. Very influential. He's the logo. And he was, you know, what, the Lakers GM or something forever. Consultant, I think, for a while. I'm thinking... I want to put him high because of influence, and he was a bucket getter in his day. He really was. I feel like he's close to the Dream's influence. I kind of want to put him here. I just realized these three, aren't they like friends in real life? Like, aren't they part of the Banana Boat crew? And now they're together on here. That just occurred to me. Anyway, yeah, that's where we're going to put Jerry West. Next is Wilt Chamberlain. Now, Wilt Chamberlain could score a bajillion different ways, but I've seen his finger rolls, I've seen his dunks, I've seen all the different things, the hooks, the lays. He could dribble, he was super fast, he could block, like I said, his skills, both ends of the floor, great player, super bucket getter, but a lot of it came from just being bigger, stronger, faster than everyone, not necessarily being super skilled. Like, he wasn't the best dribbler or even the best dribbling center or the best pass. Actually, I can't say that. 1 year, because he got the critique of only being a scorer, he decided to lead the league in assists 1 year. Could do it. That said, his usage rate was crazy high. That's how he's always able to achieve his stats. If you look at his usage rate, it's absolutely absurd. I think in the 100-point game, his usage rate was like 80% or something, 75%. It was crazy high, whatever it was. I was trying to use hyperbole, and I might not have exaggerated enough for it to be a hyperbole. The other thing I would say is, I don't know. It's like, is he more or less skilled than Kareem? I think he was a better, or not a better scorer, a more prolific scorer game to game than Kareem. Kareem definitely had the longevity, consistency though, overall. I'm going to put him there. Now, Zeke, one of the best point guards of all time, champion. His thing is, he wasn't a primary scorer. Like, he wasn't the go-to guy, but he could get you buckets and super skilled again. I'm thinking he should maybe slot in like here. Feels right. It's weird to have like it. Don't ask me why, but that suddenly feels a lot better. Okay, I like that better. I moved Akeem up. But yeah, we got Zeke just ahead of Harden and Doncic. Again, influence era, a lot of those factors I'm taking into account here. Actually might feel better like that. No, I'm going to keep it like that. Zeke had a little flash to his game, and he had that little thing he did on his jumper. I don't know why he was like that, but he did it. Instead of like being a guy that kicks his legs out, he kind of like bunny hopped. Anywho, okay, Gilbert Arenas. Now, Gilbert Arenas was an absolute bucket. A little bit of a Looney Tune as well. Like, his self-awareness in moments seems to be very lacking. And I mean, that's still true to this day. He says some wild shit in his pod and realize it. Didn't have that long of a peak. An absolute 2K legend, if you can get him as well. It's kind of like T-Mac. It's a good piece to build around. Kind of like Hakeem. I'm going to put him down here. Maybe here, just because I think he's more skilled than Moses. I don't think he's better than Moses. I think he's a guy that can give me a bucket, though. Michael Beasley. And again, guys that love Michael Beasley, I feel like guys that like Melo, like, he's an archetype of a player. I don't know how else to describe it. He's a hooper. He's a hooper. I think it's pretty easy. We can just slot him in right away there. He could score. He was never really the main guy. In the NBA, college, you know, different when he's younger, very different. Was the go-to guy. But yeah, absolutely. And he is a legend in his own right. Absolute bucket getter. Jamal Crawford, same kind of category. I'd put him there just because I think Jamal had more 50-point games. I think he had 50-point games with the Suns. He had like 3 different teams, I think. I think he's the only player to do that, so he definitely deserves to be there. Oh, then we got Neek. Now, Dominique definitely had some skill to his game. A little flash. I mean, if you've seen the fucking... Sorry for cursing. Oh. Dominique had some flash. If you've seen the All-Star games, the dunk contests, you know. I'm thinking right about there for now. Oh, Drazen Petrovic. Now, this dude came to the NBA when I was very young and just getting into the sport. So I was like obsessed. I started watching the drafts as a kid. I wanted to know who the new players were coming in. That's how I learned who O'Neal was. I saw him draft night, and like they show you the talk about him, and they show like some, maybe not all players, but like the #1 pick, obviously. They'll show like a quick clip package for or whatever, and talk about him, their college stats and stuff like that. And I just remember getting really hyped for that kind of stuff. And I don't remember, was it the 91 draft? Whatever draft it was, maybe 90 with Petrovic. It was like definitely the first one I think I remember watching. And his game spoke to me because he was a guard. I played point guard. He could shoot from outside. That was my specialty, was shooting jump shots and layups too. But my layup package was like reverses and fakes and like all sorts of finger rolls and twists, because I played older kids growing up. I was always on the smaller side of the team. But because I played older guys all the time, like, and even older than the guys on my team, I used to play against guys several grades ahead of me. And then when I'd play, like, for, you know, at school and with like after school and stuff like that, but then at practice, I was on a team a grade ahead, so I was always playing up. I always had challenges of shooting over the top of guys, having a quick release, making sure I can get my shot off, that it can't be blocked. And that's also why I became probably a pass first point guard, because oftentimes my moves were to move the defender in such a way, or to draw a second defender, especially if I could beat the guy, to get, you know, somebody open. And I was always going to pass it up in those cases. That said, I remember his highlight package distinctly coming out, and they were showing him in these uniforms I'd never seen before. Obviously, he's from Europe. I think Croatia to be exact. Could be wrong. I'd have to double check that. It's been a long time since I looked at Drazen's and Basketball Reference. But his game spoke to me. He was an outside shooter. I love that. As a Suns fan, like, I was really getting, like, later I would get really into Dan Marley and some of the guys that shot the long ball for the Suns, Rex Chapman. Oh, Rexy should be on this list. He was a bucket getter in his day. He wouldn't be super high up, but he should be on this list. I'll add him after. Or at the end. We'll do it at the end. Now, Drazen, in my opinion, tragically, he died in a car accident, I think with his girlfriend in the car. Which really sucks. It was like, I think in the off season or something, but yeah, he died really young, so he didn't have a very long career, unfortunately, which means highlights all that other stuff I talked about for guys like Kawhi, who maybe miss time and don't get like as much exposure, or maybe they lose a step because of the injuries. They don't have as much for you to go off of, but that's also kind of a good thing sometimes too, because then they don't have so many negative things to bring them down. And what I'll say about Drazen is this: Petrovic, when he got his chance, he made it count. He wasn't a starter from day one. He had to earn his spot, his minutes, stuff like that. And he's just like a legend in my eyes. He was like the first Euro that I remember being super hyped for. And I remember trying to talk to my dad about European basketball players. And I didn't know who he was talking about at the time, but he kept talking about Arvydas Sabonis, like I was supposed to know who that was. And I didn't. And he's an absolute legend, obviously. Father of Domantas Sabonis. And just a very skilled big man. Jokic before Jokic, basically. Oh, wait. Is that ISO Joe I see? Is that ISO Joe? That's ISO Joe, baby. ISO Joe. I mean, talk about bucket getter. I mean, throw him in automatically like there. I'm actually gonna go here. Yeah. Yeah, that feels right. Oh, man. I'm just thinking about it. It's like, is it here? Is it here? He's going to be C tier. Kevin Garnett is the better player, but I think Joe Johnson is more of a bucket getter. But I think not that Kevin Garnett isn't a bucket getter. I think Kevin Garnett's more of a killer than ISO Joe Johnson. So I think I'm gonna keep it this way. And I think if Drazen plays longer, it's maybe like that. But yeah. ISO Joe was basically Paul George. Not even. I was gonna say he's Paul George before Paul George. He's Melo before Melo. He's just like this dude, you know. I don't know how to talk about him. I don't think he had the influence of some other players like he should have. He wasn't brash or outspoken, but he just had basketball moves. He had a bag of moves, and he wasn't trying to be flashy all the time. He just was like, he literally was like, I feel like he was trying to play good, ethical, fundamental basketball, but just couldn't help sometimes breaking out these moves that just left you like, what the hell? Like, again, a guy that could get you a bucket in a phone booth, and I love those types of players. Him, Michael Beasley, Melo, like similar molds in my eyes. Oh God, we got J-Kid. Oh God, we got J-Kid. Now here's what I'll say about J-Kid. Jason Kidd did not start off with a jumper. That came later. They used to call him Asen. Have a J. But he did develop a jumper. And he became a champion. Super fucking smart. Oh my God, and the flash he plays with. The no-look passes, the behind the back, the crosses, everything about his game. I'm instantly thinking like right around Pete Maravich. And if I had to pick, I'd put him above Pete. Yeah, I think that's right. Like I said, by the end of his career, he did have a really reliable jumper. So I think I'll put Kidd there. Okay, next we got Lou Will. Now, Lou Will was the original sixth man. I mean, I thought there was discussion they were going to name the award after him at some point. Now, Lou Williams, I mean, it's him and Jamal Crawford. Like, who is it? Take your pick. Put one above the other. I'm going to say Lou Will just below Jamal, just because I think Jamal has the higher scoring games in his career. Maybe has the higher career points. I don't know without looking it up. But that just feels right. So because of that, both have flashy games, by the way. And Jamal might have a slightly flashier game because his handles were ridiculous. So he definitely probably deserves the nod there. Ooh, Penny! Penny suffers from the same thing a lot of the other guys did. His prime gets cut down because of injury. Good God, did this guy have swagger in his handles and his shots. His little, his like spin fake jumper that he does, I don't even know what that move's actually called. It's disgusting. It's nasty. It's beautiful. And he was a scorer, but he's also a passer. Here? Down here? Maybe about there. I don't know if that feels right, but I'm going to put him there. That feels about right for me right now. Yeah. He could score. That wasn't his primary thing. All right, Trae Young. Now, Trae Young, Ice Trae. Trae Cold. I don't know what the fuck you call him. He's so good. Oh, man. Looking at this list. He's like equally as good a scorer as Dame, in my opinion. He's just about as good as a passer as Stockton, but with more flash. He's got better handles than both. Right there? Yeah, right there. And look, he's right next to his Hawks counterpart. Hey, 3 of them are on this tier. Hey, the Hawks have had some hoopers. Okay, Jason Williams. Not known for having a jump shot. He had one. It just wasn't the best. It was probably, if I looked it up, it might have been league average for his career. But good God, another guy that couldn't. So Joe Johnson would like just happen to play with Flash. Wasn't like his intention. Jason Williams was white chocolate. Literally didn't have anything but Flash. This dude was a magician. All he knew was Flash. Like, I'm talking about his floaters had swag to him, his no looks, his behind the back elbow passes, everything about it. He's a hooper for sure. Now, was he like a hooper bucket getter? He could be. I've seen him do it. He wasn't that amazing at it. Like, he wasn't like the bucket getter first teams. He's point guard. He's usually going to be the setup guy. I don't think I could put him at C tier for that. So, it's probably going to end up at D. Jason Williams at D tier. Does that feel right? Yeah, that feels right. Okay, now same kind of logic here. I'm thinking... I'm going to stop there only because going up further, I feel like all these guys are much better scorers, like, and still had enough flash to hold their own. If it was just flashiness, because again, this is a Hoopers list, not flashiness. This is a Hoopers list. If it was all about flash, he would go up, but it's not. You got to be able to get buckets at the end of the day, so I think he stops maybe there. And honestly, if you were to just go on the Hoopers part, he would probably be like there. But I'm giving him a little bit of an upgrade because of the rest of his game. Again, it's about how you get buckets. Includes a bunch of the skills. They're all basically offensive, but still. And we got a modern mid-range assassin. Guy that his game would have been phenomenal in the 90s. Could stretch the floor, but was mostly known for his mid-range game. And Sean Livingston, he had a little flash to his game, especially when he was younger. Again, a guy who got injured and maybe his prime gets cut down a little bit, and he has to change his game a little more to his strengths, which luckily for him was the mid-range game. Not as flashy as Jason Williams. Oof. Probably a better scorer. I would say like... I'm sorry, Moses. Maybe I'm not familiar enough with your game. I don't remember you being that flashy. I need to go watch more highlights or some complete games to fill that out more, but I don't think you had enough flash to your game. What's keeping him above some of these guys is he was a more prolific scorer than them. And he did have moves. It's not that he didn't have them. They just were like big man moves. They were like traditional classic moves that I remember. Up and unders, some fakes, some things like that. Brandon Roy. There is a YouTube video coming soon. I'm going to be editing it tomorrow. I was supposed to get to it today, but the Suns game is on. If you saw my blue sky skeets, you saw that I was skeeting all day about the Suns game and other stuff, and about these trades that have been going on. As you know, I started the stream up talking about that. That kind of got in the way of finishing editing the Brandon Roy career sim, which we just live streamed. I will be editing that together and putting a complete video together on YouTube. There's a part 1 and 2 on Twitch you can watch now. That said, Brandon Roy to me is a hooper. Absolute hooper. Kind of what inspired me to make this list. This list is also to help me like brainstorm guys I can do career sims with and fun things I can do with hoopers. So that's why I made this. You guys are kind of watching me go through the work process while I'm, actually creating some content. Now, that said, I think Brandon Roy is a hooper to automatically qualify at like C tier. But I look at who's on that C tier, and I don't know if he had... Here's what I'll decide. Here's how I'll decide it. He averaged 22.6 in the 08-09 season, which I think I said while we were doing that stream. That was his peak. $22.3. That answers it. Brandon Roy, you're going right here. He was 0.6. He was so close. These two were almost, yeah, perfect. I like that. I like that a lot. Okay, Anthony Edwards. Ooh-wee. He's on the come up. I'll tell you what. He is so good. Got a lot of skills. He's like, how do I put this? He has a lot of the skills I think would make him like an A or B tier. But I feel like some of those skills are still rough around the edges. He's young. It happens. That said, I think that makes him B or C. He's right now turning into a prolific scorer, like this season. I think when it's all said and done, he'll be higher on the list. But as of today, January 27th, 2025, his bucket getting abilities can get him to B tier. I'm going to say, other than his dunks, which are highlight reel worthy, those are more about ferocity and speed. I haven't seen a lot of finesse, crazy 360 like layup style finishes. He has that in his game. Just saying, it's not like a big part of his game, like a Kyrie or something like that, or a Jordan. I think he'll get there. I think he will. He'll put more mass on. He'll get a little stronger as he gets a little more, gets more seasons under him. The C tier, here's my thing. A lot of those guys have so much flash in their game. I don't want to be like a hater and put him low. But like, I don't want to like over give him credit, if that makes sense. If I put him just below Dwayne Wade, because I actually see him as about skill-wise very similar to Kawhi. Like, I think he actually has more in his bag than Kawhi. But like I said, I feel like he's rough around the edges on some of those skills. Dribbling around the back or something, you know? Tell you what, don't hate me, but he's going right here for right now. Devin Booker. Okay, I am biased as fuck. In my eyes, Devin Booker's only second to Steve Nash right now. Like, literally. But, and he's a better scorer than Nash. Probably not as flashy. Probably equally skilled, just, like I said, doesn't have as much flash. But he's a bucket getter first. I'm just thinking, like, because honestly, the difference between him and Ant is so small, like, they could be right next to each other as well. Booker hits some tough shots, some tough ethical buckets over double team. The amount of no, I'm putting him there. The amount of double teams that man's hit buckets over, he gets the nod. He gets the nod to B tier. Donovan, Jesus Christ. You're in the exact same boat. He could literally go from Ant to Book. I think his skill set's slightly more evolved than Ant's. I think Ant is maybe a more prolific scorer already. Donovan plays with a little bit of flash to his game. Spida. I think I'll leave it like this for now. I want to move him up. That's Dwayne Wade. Gotta move Booker down. I think I gotta move Booker down. I basically compared him to Steve Nash, and I'm like, what, is he flashier than Magic? No, but is he a better scorer? Hell yes. By like a lot. He have more skill? Hard to say. You know what? I just realized something. I'm moving you down a couple notches just because you don't actually have that much flash to your game, whereas these other guys really did. With that said, I might put Booker over here at a Magic. If Booker played with a little more flash, I'd move him up to B tier. But the lack of flash keeps him at C. That's me being a realist. I love Booker. He's he's gonna be the best son of all time. My opinion, but he's gonna be the best son of all time. Probably according to most everybody. All right, Jason Tatum. A guy who could have flash to his game, but it's like the most boring flashiness you could ever experience. I don't know how to explain that. He's fundamentally sound. He's got good footwork. He's got the step back, the side step. He's got, you know, turnaround jumpers. I've seen him hit fadeaways. I've seen him yam on people. Seen him with the yeah. I don't think he's as flashy as Spider or Ant, though. But he's probably flashier than Kawhi. That's a perfect spot for him. Jason Tatum, you're going right there. All right, Vince Carter is new. Now, Vince Carter had some swag. You've seen the dunk contests, you know. Seen basically any of his highlights. His nickname's the Human Highlight Reel. Played with some swagger for sure. Had a little flash to his game. Was a bit of a scorer as well. Definitely influenced tons of people. Lots of kids in Canada who are now becoming crazy dominant basketball players. Just look at Shea, right? Oh, should Shea be on this list? Maybe I should add him as well. That feels good. Right next to his cousin. Right next to Dr. J, who I would argue the two of them are like probably the most influential dunkers of all time. Followed probably by Jordan. Let me go ahead and hit... Yeah, I'm going to add a couple more real quick. As it occurred to me, they should probably be in here. So one bucket getter that came to mind. Suns legend. He came to the Suns in a dark period, and he shone a light that made us believe there was hope at the end of that tunnel. Rex Chapman. The best photo they have of him? Really? No, ESPN has to have one. We'll use this one. I'm hoping they'd have an image of him playing with a little bit of swagger, you know? I guess I'll use this image of him. There we go. First thing to do, get that image in there. Where's the shade? Shade's gonna be easy. All right, 2 more Hoopers. All right, now Rex Chapman, I hate to say it's pretty obvious. I want to pretend like you were Drazen level, like, amazing. And honestly, if we're going to keep it a buck, look up Rex Chapman's story. He struggled with addiction a lot. He's overcome it. He's a big advocate for talking about stuff, helping people, talking about mental health and addiction and all these things. He's not shy about hiding his story. In fact, he's released an is it biography or autobiography? He has some kind of biography out about him where he talks about a lot of that stuff and his struggles and about the people who were there to help him along his way and his failures and his redemption, or I wouldn't say redemption, but his, whatever you want to call it, his journey. It's just his journey, his story, and how he got to where he is and how he's in recovery and all that stuff. Really good story. Just check it out if you haven't. Anyway, I haven't read the whole book. I've heard him read a couple excerpts from it. I've seen him do a couple interviews where he talks about it in specific parts of the book. It's really good. Shea in the MVP race already. He is a prolific scorer, like a 30-point game per guy. I think Shea goes right there. Maybe right there because I'm biased. That's it. That's how it's going to be. I'm going to let my bias put book over Shea, and we're going to call it there. That's my list. I'll call that final. Let me save this. We're going to hit save. Oh, download image. Sorry. Close that. So there we go. I think that's my tier list. I don't think I'd really want to move anybody. It did kind of end up peaks and valleys. I knew not a lot of people would be down here in F, but it would be disrespectful not to have Shaq and Tim Duncan in here. So I had to do it. That feels pretty good. I will be linking in the YouTube video a link to this tier list. If you guys want to make your own and share them with me, please do. I will check them out. If you guys want to tell me any rationale on why somebody should be above someone else or where I was off, like in my reasoning, I'm open to discussion and talking about it. My personal opinion is going to be different than yours. I love a lot of these basketball players. As a matter of fact, I'm looking at all these faces. As much as like Luka and Booker and the Suns and the Mavs and Dirk and Nash and we're friends and foes and the rivalries that are out there, I think these are like my favorite basketball players of all time. Not realizing it. I love hoopers. What can I say? Like, I love hoopers. There's just some guys that have it, and other guys that don't. And if I had to like put in guys that I think are overrated versus underrated, maybe that's a different tier list. We make the same thing, but we have 2 categories: overrated, underrated, appropriately rated or rated. I don't know what you call it. We put it in there and we see how that goes. Yeah, I think this is my favorite one so far. I had one earlier. I think this is more well thought out. Added a few new people as well. So yeah, I appreciate you guys swinging by for the stream. Comment, like, subscribe. Every little bit helps the channel. I would love to get this in the Squealer Games. 1,000 followers on each channel would be amazing by the end of this next year. I'm hoping that I can get some videos. I want to have like at least a dozen videos with a few hundred watches each on them by the end of the year. I really want to grow both channels. One is going to be this content, my gaming and my personal like NBA content and all the stuff I like to create. And the Squealer Games is just going to be me and my friends playing board games or stuff together. Check it out, Squealer Games. Anyway, appreciate y'all for swinging by. Thanks for making this stream a part of your day. I hope you have a good night.